So as I am here speaking ill of Roger Markby and Mystic Hands, they're foul, and I'm their harm. So even amongst their own, you know, honor code violations, and what colleague would they have that would permit themselves abducted, um, and effectively, power of attorney appointed to people who have always wanted to undermine you, and um, you know. Now, so I can talk about them as I wish under the circumstances. What I'll tell you a little bit about religious people is that remember that at some point they must make a decision. Person X has caved to consent to be studied. In fact, from their point of view, and this is psychopathic and they're not even being critical about being in this situation, this paradoxical situation where they go, our religious, theological, propositional knowledge and values are concealed from public disclosure, yet we feel as social scientists and gentlemen that we can technologically sense citizens reaching out to us for help. Now, bear in mind that they've buried and repressed the Markian narrative, which is them. So you've got them then assuming that role, like, oh, do you think you're the king of, Swinger Hill or Mawson or Colwell? Are you the king of, the Kambar village? They've got that circumspect. It's second nature to them to be circumspect, invasive in surveying, connotative to a charge they wish to issue. So the manner in which they gather and collect evidence is going to be ridiculous too. I mean, absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous to the point of your familiarity with London bridges falling down, constituting a case against you that you perhaps by pyrotechnic means or use of explosives bear the intent to travel to Buckingham to use explosives to destroy London Bridge, and that therefore you're to be restrained and you're to have antipsychotics rammed into your system for the rest of your life for the safety of London Bridge. It's the claim that it's made possible by belief in God, if argued in one tone or another. That's the opposite phonetically of worship songs. If you think of worship songs are all gestural to a God concept which doesn't exist, but is constituted of a bunch of emotional responses, and a religious Christian can be convinced that no matter how harsh the fate they endure and how harsh the conditions of mistreatment they go through, it's what God had intended for them. It suits them. It's appropriate to them. And at what point are they to step up and rebel and go just because I can remember the song London Bridge? I mean, nor am I providing a water spout for Incy Wincy Spider to climb up. You've got, investigating my apartment as you do, you're not going to find my shoes buckled. You're going to find much evidence of this intent to. But what they want to say is the intent is there. It's just they're very retarded with these arguments. I hate the talk. Like, you suffer from chronic physically disabling pain. Do you think it's in your brain or do you think it's mental? Now, if a healthcare professional asks you that question, given all the receptors are in your brain, it's a bit like asking a spade if it's a spade, really. So it's it's self-evidently it's entailing of violating the Religious Discrimination Act, because it's to say there's a part of your somehow your body is not physical, and yet here's an ensemble and range of physical chemical substances. Can we complicate the case pertinent to you with, you know, the capital city of Australia, where the legislation paper is 5 times thicker than it is in the Mental Health Act of any other state, territory in the on the continent. That's where you're being sort of secretly asked on the sly. You know, are you just conflicted by introspective related philosophic or existential problems that you can think through, but you're struggling, and so your pain is therefore mental. You go, no, the pain is in the fucking head. Um, I don't. I don't require interventionary prayer. Enough people know my IP address. So yeah, no interventionary prayer here, please. Now the word will. So the Masonic studies know this about those of you theists. You're thinking of death and beyond it, connotative to a traveler's journey. People who are, I think of something like, if I could contribute a book to society, then that book would outlive me, but it would come from me, but outlive me, and perhaps be of use to people after I'm gone. And that sense in which a person's existence is transcendental of their physical death, because they're still actively contributing to society. Like with watching Bowie's clips still. I don't like the feeling at all of that is gone. So Manson puts it beautifully in, you know, the recent tribute to Gene Wilder. May he live on in his works. And that's an aspiration worth working towards, that others would think that of you, rather than thinking, well, I am this traveller, and I say you've divisively taken the word will and wedged it in ways that create opportunity for your exploit, um, in terms of what operations may go about, connotative to what eyes are above you, what eyes are below you, what business affiliations subsist between the two, and that you have, if you've written in your a will, and then also declared on at every Sunday, you know, Lord, not my will be done but yours, then, you know, these Masons take to is they want to take on. Imagine, read the book of Job, you'll get an idea of Freemasons. The narrative and the way that tenor in which Lucifer accosts God and challenges God, saying, you know, Job is not your best worshipper. He's just got good circumstances. He's got 10 kids, he's got the farm. He's been fruitful, he's prospering. You know, his worship is just empty placations. There's no truth about Job loving you, God, and Lucifer would hustles. It's just, you know, like the courtroom devil advocate. Lucifer just hustles and hustles, and in the book of Job, God gives in and goes, "Well, I'll test him," and kills all 10 of his children. And you know, God proves a retard in that book if you read. So those of you willers, paperback willers, you know, you've taken it away from you that that what constitutes your will is something that you're marshalling on all religious grounds. Your every religious ground, and your submission to a deity means that your will is, you say of your own will, well, I relegate its handling over to you, O Lord. And don't I hope that the devil won't besiege it and misappropriate my will. And doesn't the book of Job tell all Christians that that's just as likely to happen, corresponding to the better religionists they become? Because there really was no better example of a worshipper of God in the Bible than Job, and yet he winds up being the most mistreated by God. And you also see God being, by means of verbal negation, the absolute bitch, the bitch of the devil. Lucifer wins. If you want to say, charge and indict Lucifer with horrible use of language, you can go, yeah, but compare that to God murdering 10 of Job's children. Oh, but in a biblical fairy tale ending, once he has destroyed all of Job's equity, and Job's on his knees screaming, saying, "Why have you done this, Lord?" And then God replies to him with a question: "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth?" To which Job could have said, in fact, I'm told you laid a lot more than the foundations of the earth. You had a man's ribcage lay a woman so that he could lay the woman on the foundations of the earth, and then you had everyone inbreed thereon. You even made sure that they marched the animals in mating pairs so that every single species of animal could be inbred. So, you know, it would be a nice break from all this incestuous self-extinction of species for you to indeed lay the foundations of the earth once again, right here, right now. Maybe you'll settle the fuck down, not murder 10 children. And then in a fairy tale ending, Job receives the blessing of a fresh batch of another 10 children and his cozy home from the biblical God. The key here that I want you to think about is, why does a being who knows everything, has all power, is ever present, has timeless, infinite knowledge, the power to do anything, and the knowledge of everything, is not bound by space or time, and is omnipresent? Why is he going to not just have Lucifer enter and then say something to him like, "You've entered this room in an attempt to hustle me and to endanger one of my worshippers. I can already read your mind. Piss off and go and subscribe to eBay or something." And there's no answer as to why God couldn't do that, except that you are to be the benefactor, the beneficiary of reading the proceedings that occur in the book of Job, and somehow better contending with the nature of God as a result of having read them, when all the book really does is confuse God's nature, as it is defined to you as, we use the name online, Omnimax for ever-present, all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving, superhuman properties to the infinite degree, as his attributes. On a psychological level, Bishop Spong argues that man created God because he wanted God endowed with the properties that are transcendental of the exact same character attributes that constitute limitations in the daily life of man. So yeah, read Job and say, Sure. Imagine the stank of Masonic inquiry as they run a check into you and your land and what you're chatting about. What Doppler effects you've got on the matter of will. Well, you've written a will, and then you've gone to a church and said, "Not my will be done, but yours." You're sitting in front of a pokies machine, just hitting play over and over again. Will it be? Will final judgment? And so you can't. To believe in final judgment is to question, is to approach with a hectic question mark, death, the prospect of death. That's why I've predicted that the last book, once evilbible.com's content is espoused and the church is made to own up to how indecent towards women the content of the Bible is, and once all these issues are brought to public and publicly discussed more and recognized to be inhibiting societal progress, there'll be one final thought of hiding for the Bible thumpers, and that's going to be the book of Ecclesiastes. Because what they're trying to argue now and what's failing is that they're trying to say, well, you need Jesus Christ in your life as the Lord and Savior, or else everything will be meaningless. Life is meaningless. Nietzsche sort of echoes in Beyond Good and Evil, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, The Antichrist, Twilight of the Idols, The Genealogy of Morals, Ecce Homo, The Gay Science, written when gay met happy. And he echoes a lot of the statements that you'll find prevalent throughout the book of Ecclesiastes. Everything is meaningless, says the teacher. Utterly meaningless, says the teacher. There is nothing new under the sun. Everything that has happened before. There will be nothing new under the sun, and everything is meaningless. So this sort of nihilism is actually it's a domain of thought where the ex-Christian goes. They go fuck it. And they want to read about nihilism. They want to read Nietzsche. They want to read about anarchy. They want to read about all this rebelliousness. The Bible thumpers will actually be able to come forward and say, well, look, we've actually had this book here, Ecclesiastes, all along, and it actually indulges in these topics, so that you'd then be able to counter and go, well, yeah, this implies then by necessity that you embellished this entire doctrine of this innocent man you killed being some sort of dispatched savior on a premeditative quest to indemnify the immortality of people through the manner of his killing. It will be it's ecclesiastical to say, well, what if his ideas are meaningless? What if every miracle attributed to this man can be found attributed to pagan gods who lived and dwelled centuries to millennia before the birth of your Jesus Christ? What if there's nothing new under the sun indeed? So will it be a linchpin? Will it be the Bible lovers' last and final attempt to claim that they've got literary grounds to converge at a point of mutual understanding with the secular world? Because nothingness is quite calm. If you can know at the same time that at the end of life, you'll be looking at a void of nothingness, but also at the same time you're just an idea to everyone you'll ever meet. You know, understanding and marshalling both of these concepts at the same time, extend your duality and edify it in friendship with the people with whom you cross paths. Though you'll find to this day the mass media are indicting it as the ideas and beliefs and values of the dangerous person, the criminal. You even watch the cameraman cut them off when the man in Sydney who shot three people, three women that his Bible told him would have all had to suck his cock anytime he wanted. But they didn't, so, you know, he got his gun and he followed his God-given right to shoot and kill but not murder them, for he was only doing that which he believed was going to be pleasing to the biblical Lord. Sadly, you still have that stated in the Bible. You've got cops trying to bail people up on arrests, asking the question, did you fart or queef by your own free will, your God-given free will? So we're like toy soldiers, like Martika once sang about. If this all-powerful and all-knowing God wound up our decisions, wound up our every move, wound up our every predisposition, our every exercise of choice, we may have felt passively like the authors of our own actions. But if this God exists with these power attributes, we're either to argue that he doesn't exist, or we're to fathom that every single thing that's ever gone wrong in the earth has done so by his design, and that indeed any criminal that's endangered the life of another was selected to do so by the God of the Christian Bible, who I echo his words once again in the book of Isaiah. I create evil and I cause woe. I, the Lord, do all these things. So, you know, I don't really swing on the pendulum of free will versus determinism either, because each side of that debate is absconding of the concept of personal willpower. So personal willpower, and you see shred of it when Job verbally challenges God. You see a shred of it in that book there. You should have more of it. My suggestion is that there was that effort on Job's behalf that won him his family back. But you're setting up a bunch of logical contradictions in your head if you're going, well, though I act freely, all my moves were chosen by God. It creates the potential in the brain to excuse negative and hostile outbursts of mood as simply another chapter of the will of God taking form, and God remains the excuse, the ultimate excuse. It's all over the press. It's this obedience to the will of this God who has said all these things that you can read at www.evilbible.com. It's these people that think that they're following these teachings that are going to do more harm to the person with the mind that thinks nothing matters and can sense that nothing matters, that it's all in their head. This person is transcendental of hostile motive. They don't matter either. That's what you have to understand. And God believers don't get it. It's like your God's existence doesn't matter. Yes, it's somewhat common sense. Like when we were toddlers running around, hugging our relatives in our nappies at 18 months old, able to sense and empathize with our elders. It's common sense to be altruistic and not violate the rights to life, health, movement, and expression. And the belief in nothing is sufficient. as is recognizing, that nothing matters, that you yourself might only exist as concepts or ideas to other people, no matter how close you get. You might be strangers when you meet, every time you meet, and no matter how close you get or who you fall in love with, or any and all of that. But it does frustrate me that the mainstream media, what I think they're out to do is go, well, there's a supply demand province here where, and the psychiatrist who's assessed the crime comes in and goes, well, given how this person acted, they clearly weren't behaving in a very godly way. And it's a bit like how the pious and rich in France during the Renaissance would have used the term godly, because they also use the term godless to slander a less wealthy family, and say, we don't like you, we don't like how you talk, or we don't like how you look, so you're a godless piece of shit. The term godless was originally a pejorative intertwined with dismissing the approval of someone at a societal level, when what it technically means is someone who has abstained, knowingly abstained from conceding to any arguments pertinent to the existence of a supernatural dimension, be that a supernatural location or be that any supernatural beings. This has all been addressed in philosophy's recent past. The problem of morals was addressed by the ancient Greeks. That Stoicism emerged after Epicurus's riddle. If God is willing to prevent evil, but not able to prevent evil, then he's impotent. If he's able to prevent evil but not willing, he's pathetic and malevolent. If he's both able and willing to prevent evil, then why the fuck do we live in a world full of evil? And if he's neither able nor willing to prevent evil and is just kicking back, then why the fuck should any of us call him God? And, the Greeks stated that 2 millennia ago. Nietzsche restated it and said our morals must derive from our own willpower. People like Michael Shermer and Shelley Kagan have built on that, and Sam Harris, and have said that morality has to. You can even see the Christians drew a diorama of it when they portrayed heaven and hell, and said that why would you want to go to heaven and avoid going to hell? It's all promissory on the idea that you'll be enjoying all the benefits of being in heaven, and having avoided and dodged all the perils and torments that would await those going to hell. So it's already recognized that morality reduces to the state of welfare, of existential welfare for conscious creatures. And it's been argued that we can better attain those principles while we're here on Earth now, rather than block progress with this doctrine of final judgment. Contributing to the well-being and of conscious creatures. It's relative differentials and variables from person to person. And that which is considered bad is that which is diminishing or destructive to the flourishing, the aforementioned flourishing and well-being of conscious creatures. And so it's submitted that's what we mean by good and evil. We mean, are you flourishing? Are you deteriorating? And such is the scope of of good and bad. So the conclusion is, as I see it, is probably out of some kind of caste-based, culture-loving mentality that's looking for political opportunities to push religious agendas, and I think that they deep down are envious, perhaps, of citizens that they isolate and pick on. And they want to regard it or make it regarded to be an illness or a sickness if you've considered philosophy beyond the time of Freud. Um, if you've considered Sartre and Sartre's regard of Heidegger, his dialogue and exchange with Simone de Beauvoir, the existential crisis. Yes, it's a very different culture of person. And these people want to party, celebrate life. There should not be discrimination on the basis that perhaps you believe in nothing or you're choosing to believe in nothing for the time being. Those options should be left to the individual, and I would submit that they'd not be regarded as forms of sickness, especially not if complaints aren't being lodged, and you are aware of a person's passivity to address problems in life as they come. So it'll be ironic when contests get that bad and nihilists or those contemplatives of nihilist ideas and anarchist ideas and societal detraction. They're actually those sort of mentalities are indemnified by the book of Ecclesiastes, and that could be pointed out, I suppose, in court. You're asking everyone to touch a book that does indeed admit that we should disregard our teachers for the sake of building ourselves, and admit that everything is meaningless, and that nothing is new. All these roles that we're playing, this arguing that I'm doing, someone else has already done it before. There's nothing new about it, except that this is a world where if you had some contribution, the church would enjoy your killing, and then perhaps decorate your skeleton 200 years later with a heresy retraction. So yeah, sorry Galileo, we admit it now. You seem to knew it. Now we've got satellites everywhere, so and they've confirmed the measurements you made. So Galileo, you died getting persecuted and called a heretic by the church and the greatest authorities of your time. So how advanced Australia fair is the church holding back a doctrine that does indeed state that life is inherently meaningless, only to go on and declare and pronounce the meaning and value of other people on the basis of encouragement against their difference because you know better somehow, because Jesus made some members of the Australian Federal Police roll around in the mud. We've seen it all before. Ta-ta. So the ones that think I would equate all concepts of justice with, like, wanting to write litigiously, and that's how I would see it. I've been thinking about, I don't devote much time trying to estimate out these moves, which is, I obviously was misled I was unaware she had taken such an interest in uh, stick a nose into, and yet not talk to me about what agenda she had with art. That as I saw it, what I think is absolutely horrible is when a person looks at it and would dictate to you what. I mean, only to take you or advise you go to psychiatry where they do use the Rorschach effect, which is a blot of ink, and they go and they ask you, can you look at this blot of ink? What do you see? And how vulgar. So yeah, so what's going on with Alan is that I've seen her drive by disguised. I've seen her avoid conversation follow up, and I've just talked about her um, back in church, saying, you know, and if she calls that the day she stood up to Gary Bradford, it's still the day she stood up to Gary Bradford about praying to Jesus in ways that Jesus himself taught not to, and therefore you don't even have to. You don't even have to. You can throw aside the anything about the question of the sexuality of Jesus in his day. Um, if he's her Lord and he said, "Don't pray to me in public groups," and Alan is like, yeah, "Oh, and he died for you, and died for you. Quick, let's all pray to him in public groups." Like, um, te tears of a be a wom- you'll be a woman soon. I I wish I wish her the best. But yeah, I see the same. She wants to be on the run from. So yeah, she'll go. You know, why are you a fan of Corn? Amongst other things, they're true to themselves. What about Manson? He worships the devil. No, he doesn't, and you should read his quotes online where he talks about what the Church of Satan regarded devil worship to be about in the mid to late 90s. That now means you've lied on behalf of two bands. Is that because they have long hair in a way that makes you feel disappointed that you prayed to your Lord in a way that his were against his wishes? And what sort of a Christian does that make you? One to lie about everyone else. Okay, well, don't you ask? Don't go. Now it's my turn. Now it's Alan Ayer's day to save the world. Um, like I said, it was contingent on the question: can art be enough for a friendship, or are you going to complicate things and turn my life into a season of neighbors, um, or Twin Peaks, or whatever the fuck you're into? Because if so, you can. Oh, oh, get fucked. Whoa, go get fucked. Whoa, shit, fuck, whoa. Hi, so now, if the question is the one's going up to Roger, who loves to find unilateral ways to state the sustainment of his dignity pursuant to all endeavors and involvements and projects, and if they were to approach him and say, well, you're obstructing justice by keeping him here, you owe him, uh, Roger might turn back to them and say, well, in this need to travel, he only has to call and request a meeting. It's no, no, no. It's not going to be played that way, and that's simply because it indemnifies to other people's onlooking the prospect that the initial claims that Roger filed, the camera planting, and the initial journalistic efforts were done with my consent. Now, he might have done a dodgy deal with the man who mum's fourth wedding with that guy. That's entirely possible. It fits with them sustaining the grounds by which they disliked me. Then wanting to match that with the prospect of me having been invited to employment at the Canberra Hospital, while knowing that I hadn't. They would know it would have been a weight on my mind, the terms by which I left Capital, and it's like the feeling that you have if you were rural or in a campsite and you've got to watch out for reptiles. A bit, you're on alert, but with no consent given by my person to Roger, and then of course I'm invited by Elizabeth Braden's suggestion to go, whereas it could only have been Roger through liaising with management at the Capital Chemist warehouse at the back of Wania's shops that he would have ascertained word that I don't think in the most gentlemanly ways about Elizabeth Braden, and had taken on the phone orders for Capital Chemist warehouse stock to go to Elizabeth Braden's shop at O'Connor. I'm not going to be a gossip, but she's not. She wasn't exactly the poster girl of other Capital Chemist shops or the warehouse, but she invites me to go and to work at O'Connor. Not only invites me, but encourages, this employer, brunette, long hair. Would you like a lift home? Watch them now. What they weren't expecting was any sort of response, and now watch them trying to tell you contradictory things. That my observations are to be dismissed as coincidental, but their profile and all the predeterminist axioms that you're to just merely imagine, independent of the factuality of events, are however cogent and valid and merit your belief and your crediting. Watch them go indeed. So no, there was a liaison between lawyers, lawyer to lawyer, and my lawyer talking to his lawyer. Well, there's not going to be me meeting Roger Toll when Roger crosses me to film me. If I can do things like film him fucking his partner and put the footage on YouTube. So I have to do stuff like that in payback before I would consider a personal conversation. So now, if the question is, the one's going up to Roger, who loves to find unilateral ways to state the sustainment of his dignity pursuant to all endeavors and involvements and projects. And if they were to approach him and say, well, technically you're obstructing justice by keeping him here, you owe him, Roger might turn back to them and say, well, if in this need to travel, he only has to call and request a meeting. It's no. It's not going to be played that way, and that's simply because it indemnifies to other people's onlooking the prospect that the initial claims that Roger filed, the camera planting, and the initial journalistic efforts were done with my consent. Now, he might have done a dodgy deal with the man who mum's fourth wedding with that guy. That's entirely possible. It fits with them sustaining the grounds by which they disliked me. Then wanting to match that with the prospect of me having been invited to employment at the Canberra Hospital, while knowing that I hadn't. They would know it would have been a weight on my mind, the terms by which I left Capital, and it's like the feeling that you have if you were rural or in a campsite and you've got to watch out for reptiles. A bit, you're on alert, but with no consent given by my person to Roger, and then of course I'm invited by Elizabeth Braden's suggestion to go, whereas it could only have been Roger through liaising with management at the Capital Chemist warehouse at the back of Waniasa shops that he would have ascertained word that I don't think in the most gentlemanly ways about Elizabeth Braden, and had taken on the phone orders for Capital Chemist warehouse stock to go to Elizabeth Braden's shop at O'Connor. I'm not going to be a gossip, but she's not. She wasn't exactly the poster girl of other Capital Chemist shops or the warehouse, but she invites me to go and to work at O'Connor. Not only invites me, but encourages, this employer, brunette, long hair. Would you like a lift home? Watch them now. What they weren't expecting was any sort of response, and now watch them trying to tell you contradictory things. That my observations are to be dismissed as coincidental, but their profile and all the predeterminist axioms that you're to just merely imagine, independent of the factuality of events, are however cogent and valid and merit your belief and your crediting. Watch them go indeed. So no, a liaison between lawyers, lawyer to lawyer, and my lawyer talking to his lawyer. Well, there's not going to be me meeting Roger Toll when Roger crosses me to film me. If I can do things like film him fucking his partner and put the footage on YouTube. So I have to do stuff like that in payback before I would consider a personal conversation.